All right. I got to start over, I think. Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge. Welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. And I'm sitting here in the sanctuary of the Fledge. I've got my headset on. I've got brown hair and brown eyes. I'm wearing a T-shirt with Biggie as the king and Jay-Z and Kanye fighting over the throne that was made by Robert Montalvo, a local fashion designer here. And I've got Digital Underground on my mind today. So, yeah, but let's get to our guests. So today on the show, we have our great friend, Clarke. How you doing, Clarke?
Great. Good to be here, Jerry.
Was I silent for a second there when I went live? Yeah. I heard a click or something, and then it told me I lost connection to my mic. So anyways, how you been doing today?
I have been doing awesome. It's a Friday, and we're actually getting a lot of work here. I'm calling from AJ Boggs and Company. We're over in East Lansing, and I think the economy is turning. We're just getting pretty busy right now, so it's exciting times.
Oh, that's great. So tell us about you. Where were you born and raised? What did you do when you were a kid? Go to school, all that stuff.
Okay, so I was born in Indianapolis during the time trials for an Indy 500. My mom said she could hear us from the cars racing around the track the day we were born. I was 5 minutes after my brother. I kicked him out first, and we're identical twins. So Jim and I are here at AJ Boggs. Jim is in Ann Arbor, and I'm calling from our office in East Lansing. I'm here by myself. Everybody's in our company's working remotely. We got a couple of people that go into kind of isolated offices around the country, and when I was 1 year old, I moved to Rocky River, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland. And I grew up there, lived in the same house, the whole time we were growing up. And when I graduated, we had a marching band in high school that was considered awesome. And I lasted just 1 year in high school with them. But that freshman year in high school, we came up to Ann Arbor to see the U of M marching band. And our instructor loved the discipline of that band and came up, brought us all on a bus up there to see it. And we had a real good experience there. I ended up coming back later when I was a junior to check out schools, and ended up coming up to U of M, and attended University of Michigan, got 2 degrees, one in mechanical engineering and another in econ. And I took 7 years to do that, took some time off, and had a really good experience, and then ended up working here in Michigan. We got a project with the state of Michigan doing a accounting system for the Treasury Department. So I was doing computer systems when I was in my 20s here in Lansing. I met my wife, and we ended up getting married, met here in East Lansing. So just ended up staying in town, and have been in Lansing since 1988. So my life.
I don't remember us ever talking about us both being U of M alums. I always assumed you were MSU.
Yeah, that's because MSU, I actually root for MSU instead. I've been here so long, and it's just been a joy to be in this community and watch MSU do its thing. And yeah, U of M is special, but yeah, they're both great. And one of the things I wish the state of Michigan would do was pay all their universities kind of comparable amounts per student, and help each university be excellent and not at the same thing. You don't need to be great at everything. Everybody can have different strengths, and they naturally do that anyhow. So we've got, I think, 14 universities in Michigan. Yeah. And it's unbelievable, just the amount of quality higher ed here in Michigan. So the state's really invested a lot in education. And anyhow, I benefited from that. When I was in high school, I was at the library, and there was a guy named Gorman that wrote a report ranking schools. There was no U.S. News and World Report magazine. And so I was going through that, looking for schools, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I got to college. So I found U of M was like in the top 10 and like half of the things in the book. They were really highly ranked in many different areas. And I thought, well, that's a cool place, because if I don't know, like if I ended up not doing engineering, I could do something in economics or whatever. And they were very, very strong programs. So that really influenced me and was one of the reasons I ended up at U of M.
All right.
Yeah, grateful.
So then somewhere in there you formed AJ Boggs, right?
Yeah, actually, before I got married, I left a consulting firm and started AJ Boggs, and we were actually selling software for a few years, and found that doing software development was, we were working with products that had room for improvement, and so we ended up writing some code and ended up writing systems. So we do software development. We have a team of software engineers. And we also do hosting. So we've got a security team. So it's pretty cool how software, the internet was pretty non-existent in 1989 when we got started. And we had a chance to get involved real early with websites and stuff, and it had a great run. It's been a wonderful place to work too, here in East Lansing.
So that puts you guys at 32 years old, the company? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
32.
Yeah. Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah. It is. It's incredibly long. So, so we've been doing this a long time. We've had several, kind of reincarnations as we've come along. We've invested. Jim's more of a researcher, so we've invested in research to be innovative, and that's really helped us. So trying to be unique, creative, innovative. It's part of our things. We're both engineers, so there's a bit of a build it and they will come mentality in our company. Let's just do great things, and then people will come and use it. And we've had some success with that. It's pretty cool stuff. We've done some work in public health, electronic health record systems. We've done work with search engine technology and developed a system to help find text in large collections of text. And we've also done a lot of project management. It used to be the state of Michigan was our biggest customer. We did a lot of work for them, custom development, project management. And since that time, about 20 years ago, we've transitioned more to product and services and less consulting. So we're doing a lot of web portals, database systems, reporting systems, and as you know, we've invested some in cryptocurrency stuff too.
Yeah, and you've developed a couple of coins of your own.
Yeah, so we're working on a stable currency and a coin that can allow people to get coupons and save some money. So we haven't launched those. We're working on both of those together. So if you get paid in Bitcoin right now, you run the risk of changing 5 or 10% within a day, like it's done in the last couple of days. Yeah. So it's helpful to get a cryptocurrency that's linked to the dollar, so that you're not risking losing a significant amount of income just because of the variations in those pricing. So we see value in doing something like Tether or USD, which is another stable currency, and then do another coin that's based on a sort of gratuity coin where people can thank people for the work they're doing. So we're building both of those.
Yeah, I like the work you're doing in that space, and also you're doing something in that HIV health space with the coin.
Yes, our public health work is largely supporting public health organizations that serve people living with HIV or their prevention programs. We are working with a state agency to develop a gamification of services to encourage and reward people for changing their behaviors, making sure they take their medication, following up on their appointments, and other kinds of things that really make a huge difference in terms of their compliance and ability to stay healthy. So building some systems that'll help people get rewarded, give them points basically for achieving things, and then tying those rewards to actual financial things is an area we're working on. And it's really fun. So it's cool to see the technology have the impact, and it's just amazing how everybody's a technology user now. It's amazing how quickly things are changing, and it's going to continue. And that, as we've seen in the last year, cryptocurrency is not going away. Blockchain is here to stay. I like to think of it as when the public key, private key patents expired and they became freely available to everyone, now you can create public key, private key applications without having to pay somebody for their patent. And a great application of that is blockchain and how people can do that. And, it's like, I was thinking, well, when are they going to run out of keys, right? Like, is it going to be, with all these coins, it's an infinite number of keys. It's unbelievable. There's no shortage of keys. It's fantastic. I mean, the invention is just unbelievable. So to have a secure technology that's that powerful, that is free and no limit to the number of keys is just mind-boggling. And it's exciting to see what we've done in the last 10 years and what's potentially going to be coming in the future.
Yeah. And, this kind of relates back to something you said early on about AJ Boggs. You guys have been really creative and innovative and looking to kind of continually improve and take on new things. And you just talked about HIV with crypto that sounds super innovative. Yeah. Now, when we jump to your next project, it's even cooler.
Well, I think so. Our mission is really to help people and to take technology and do things that can really help people improve their quality of life and give them, make life easier basically in different ways. So one of the first projects we did was a job bank talent bank with the state of Michigan and about 6 other states. And so early in 1994, 95, we got involved in that. And it was really a joy to help people find jobs faster when the web was just taking off. So we got a chance to do that. With our work in public health, we have seen a lot of the confusion in health, just lots of craziness with all the different programs. And really, it's a reflection of our political situation in the U.S., where there's a lot of disagreement. And so we're not really settling on a system that is optimized to help people as well as it could. So we've had a chance to see, for example, the Ryan White programs found it's more cost efficient to buy insurance for people rather than just pay for their drugs. Because with people with HIV, if you don't take your drugs, you can advance into AIDS. And when you have AIDS, you become contagious, and it's really problematic for the community. Now, fortunately, the pandemic is much different, because if you take your drugs, you can have no viral load, and it's almost like a miracle. I mean, it's not. Yeah. Hopefully, they'll get a vaccine to actually put the HIV virus away for good. But in the meantime, you're left having to take your drugs every day, and fortunately, you can live a really normal life. But the fact that the federal government's giving money to local governments, who then are paying insurance companies, who then pay for drugs, and you look at all the transactions and all the work that goes into that, it's just mind-boggling. From an engineer's perspective, we look at re-engineering systems to make them more effective to achieve the goals of the programs. And what we found is, our healthcare, obviously, all of us know this, is just pretty messed up. And so one of the problems so I was at an HIV conference a couple of years ago, thinking about this problem and how, what's the bigger solution? What's the way to re-engineer this? And one of the things I think is a significant challenge is the way insurance is regulated at the state level. And here in Michigan, for example, Blue Cross Blue Shield really is more of a monopoly in our state. They by far have the most market share, and there's just a domination in the market in a way that the costs, I think, reflect that market domination. And it's hard for other insurance companies to come in and compete because of the way they do their provider network. And it's a lot more complicated than that. But I think that the nation would benefit from redoing the way they regulate insurance so that there's more competition and less overhead. And we've been working on some ideas around that, specifically a constitutional amendment to redo the way insurance is managed, and some other things. And as we've gone through a effort to write that and figure out the right solution, we came up with something called everybody benefits deduction that we feel is actually something that should get passed and is a no-brainer. And that is the idea that when you pay for healthcare, it makes sense for an individual to get the same tax treatment as an employee would receive when their employer pays for health insurance or health care costs. Where today, the insurer or the employer can pay for health benefits pre-tax, and the employee can receive it without being taxed for that benefit. Whereas if you're someone who doesn't have employers paying for it, and you have to pay for insurance or you have to pay for healthcare costs, you often are having to pay after tax. And it's a complex system, so there's things like health savings accounts and other things that can help you. But generally, you're going through an employer to do this, and so it just pulls the employer into the process in a way that really isn't necessary. I think if individuals, like at our company, if our employees had the option to go and find the insurance that's best for their family, that it would be better for them and for our company, because we're ending up having to find a plan for everybody that doesn't really specialize in a way that would be best. So we've been working on a proposal, everybody benefits deductions, that would allow people to basically go pay for an insurance or pay for healthcare costs and education and dependent care and childcare. Because once we looked at this, it's the same thing with childcare, for example. Your employer can pay for childcare and you're not paying taxes on it up to, I think it's $5,000. I'm actually not sure what that rate is, but anyhow, they're able to do that. And so people who have a job are getting a better deal on insurance, on childcare, than people who don't have a job or don't have employers that give them that. It's insane. Yeah. So I think it's a simple change that's really fair. It makes the markets better for everybody, and I think our whole country would benefit from better childcare, better healthcare, better dependent care. And so we're working on some things like that. So it's kind of fun to think about it. I found it hard to, I'm an engineer. I'm not really a politician. So it's nice to be able to share some of this work that we're doing with your audience. Jerry, I really appreciate the chance to share that with you. And it's part of a program that we put together called the Smart Care Institute. So we've taken these ideas, put them into a nonprofit that we just started last year, and have been working to kind of get that going. And so my identical twin, Jim, has been super supportive and allowed me to do that as part of the work I do at H.A. Boggs to kind of get that going. So we're excited about the everybody benefits deduction as kind of a simple starting point. And then beyond that, the Smart Care Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to fix healthcare is a much more arduous, and I'm thinking a 20-year effort. It's going to be very hard to get that through. But I think, as our country matures and we get better data, it'll be so obvious how these things need to change. And we're excited to have found a solution that we think can really help our country. I get it that a single payer solution has a lot of advantages. And if you look at other countries, if we could implement something here in the U.S. that has the good elements of that, I think we'd all be way better off. For example, the cost of drugs is a good example. That we have a law in the U.S. that our Medicaid and Medicare can't go out and competitively bid the best price for drugs, which is just unbelievable. So we need to fix that. I think probably a bigger problem with healthcare that's not obvious is that we've allowed special interests to really manipulate and pay for a lot of our politicians' success. And so it's hard for politicians who don't accept accept the influence of special interests to go out there and do what's right for the people they represent. So part of our constitutional amendment is to change that so that you don't have special interest influence in the federal program, federal elections. Eliminate that, just have people that vote be able to vote. And we believe actually that publicly funded election, the return on investment for our nation would be enormous. If you could just have, I think it'd be about $10 billion to pay for all the federal elections. You're going to still get donations, so it'll probably be less than that. But let's say it's 15 billion. For the amount of money that's being spent because special interests are manipulating our federal programs, it's not going to solve everything. But I think having publicly funded elections would be good.
Yeah.
I don't. It's possible. Like Bernie is amazing with how much support he's received. I just never would have thought that Bernie Sanders would receive the support that he has over the last really 6 years. But he will, I think he's going to have a hard time because of these special interests to get the single payer programs. Medicare for all has a lot of advantages, but I just personally am concerned that it's never going to get passed the way our federal government is currently managed. And so a constitutional amendment, I think, is a good solution. Let's fix the law so we don't have these, unfair, excessive influence on our legislators, so that they're working for us and not for special interests. It won't change that there's a lot of money in all these programs and that they still won't be influencing it. But I think we can restrict it more so that it's more balanced and solve a lot of problems. So in the name of healthcare, I think we can fix some really important things at the federal level that'll affect not just healthcare, but other parts of our government.
So, I thought that like big high-tech software big shots were supposed to work on amendments that allowed you to collect more data on people and to, pay your IT workers less money.
Yeah, there you go.
How do you even start as a mechanical engineer, econ, software CEO? I think I don't know who, I think you're the CEO, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you even start trying to do a constitutional amendment?
Yeah, it's hard. But I think one thing that helped me is that our search engines, I mentioned we did some work with search engines. Our biggest customer is the Library of Congress. So we do legislative data analysis for the Library of Congress. And so we've really had a chance to look in depth at our legislation and all the bills that come through every day, every year for the last 10 years. We've been involved in helping the Library of Congress do their analysis of legislation. And it gave me a chance to kind of understand some of the legislative things that go on that I wouldn't otherwise have known. And so I think that gave me strength. Because of the internet, you can easily search and find legislative solutions and cut and paste and put together ideas that you think are important legislatively. So, you don't need the search engine to do that. It just gave me the confidence, having met the lawyers there and understanding what they're doing, to see if we can find a solution for some of these things with healthcare. Because what's happening in Congress is data is just exploding. We're getting more and more bills. The bills are getting much more complicated. We're seeing a lot of special interests writing the legislation in a way that our congressional representatives can't really understand what they're voting on. And so most of the business gets into these omnibus legislation that is really impossible to analyze. So even though we've got tools that help you understand the differences between bills and help really understand what's going on with legislation, it feels like our Congress is just being pushed in directions that you don't have time to look at it. They don't want you. They're just pushing things through that are, again, there's special interest behind those. And so that's another reason that I kind of got motivated to do this, is just having seen that, recognizing the problem. And it's not just at the federal level. State is dealing with the same thing. I'm not a fan of the term limits in Michigan. I mean, I get it. I'd really like to see that, but we've seen the impact of it, and it's really hurting our state, because there's a lot of real complex systems that the state manages, particularly in health. And we've seen how our state legislators just aren't there long enough to understand what's going on. So the special interests are manipulating what's happening in a way that's not in the best interest of the people of the state. So I get the solution of, the problem when people were in there too long, but I'm thinking that's been a mistake. Another thing that came up that this was mind-boggling, Jerry. We thought, let's put in the line item veto in in this constitutional amendment, because then the president can just cross off stuff that really doesn't make sense and save billions of dollars. And we drafted that. We have a draft of our constitutional amendment, including a line item veto. And I think something like 50 state or over 40 states have line item veto at the state level. So there's lots of evidence of how it's used well at every state level. But it turns out it sort of neuters the legislative branch, because they can't do deals that are just going to get undone by the executive. So the governor or the president will just cross out a bunch of things that really was needed for the legislators to agree on complex stuff. And this stuff is so complicated, you really have to do the horse trading that everyone sees as a problem in politics. But if you don't do that horse trading, things don't get done. And when things don't get done, we start to have the kinds of problems that you can see we've suffered from in the last few years. So Congress actually passed a law. They don't have earmarks are illegal right now. And that seemed like a fantastic thing. John McCain was pushing that for years. But you talk to people in Congress, they can't get any legislation through. So it's just stopping things from getting done. And so there's a feeling now that they need to go back to earmarks, give somebody a bridge or a special center at a university or whatever that thing is that's going to help get somebody to agree to the bigger legislation that needs to get done to solve some big problems. Because not every state or every congressional district has the same problems. And so you have to be able to kind of balance things to get it through. So I learned a lot about that as I was kind of pushing that, and talked to several people that have a lot more experience than I do on this. And they were just like, yeah, it's not going to help. It's going to make it worse. Without earmarks, it's really hard. That's making the stalemate worse in DC. So a line item veto would make it even worse. And I think turn things, it'd be anti-democratic, which is mind-boggling. I thought, we'd save 15 billion. So really, we estimated about 15 billion a year would get saved with a line item veto. It's hard to say for sure how much it would be, but just based on the pork reports that people sent out, that was about it. So instead of saving 15 billion, you can get major legislation through that helps solve education, solve highways, solve all these other, healthcare, all these other things just don't get done without that kind of ability to do the compromise. So yeah, it's all more complicated than you would think. It's kind of drives you crazy, actually.
Well, I'm proud to know you and proud to get to work with you sometimes on these things. So it's pretty cool. You said back earlier your mission was to help people and I think you didn't stop there. You added, like with technology and all of that, and make people's lives better. What's something you do every damn day to push that mission forward?
Wow. Yeah. So that's a great question. Really, it's through people and teamwork. So the way we get anything done is through team. And one of the guys, your buddies, Dave Smith, just said it, that if you want to get there fast, go alone. If you want to get far, go with the team. Right?
He stole my quote from me.
Is that you? Okay. Yeah, he just told me that today. So he didn't attribute it to anybody, but that was a great quote. And yeah, it was probably you. So that's part of the secret is work together, get a group together to help you get there. And so that's what I spend a lot of time thinking about every day is like, how can we strengthen our culture so that people are enjoying, one thing I've learned as a IT executive is if you have someone who's arrogant in your team, they can bring down the team. It's kind of a pain in the ass to deal with someone who thinks they're better than everybody else. And in some cases they are. I mean, they can be brilliant, but if they aren't tapping the team and bringing everybody together to bring everybody's strengths to the team, then you're better off without them. And so how do you bring people in and kind of filter for things like integrity and arrogance so that you have strong integrity, but you don't have people that are arrogant that are kind of messing up the team? And so we work on just, getting to know people to bring them in. And so working really hard to get great people to come work here and do it in a way that fits in with our culture, a real team oriented. We have a real flat organization, and helping people kind of be able to come in and fit the job to their talents is the key. Which reminds me of the Accessiversity guest you had, Chris Knapp. was on here, he talks about
Yeah.
finding everybody's talents and bringing them in. We're all disabled in ways, none of us are. So it's really about strengths. It's not that we're disabled. Everyone just has different strengths, and tapping those and getting them there. So for example, I have white hair, dark glasses, I'm wearing a blue turtleneck. So for your audience that can't see, hey, here I'm sitting in my office with a bunch of blinds behind me, this empty office with just me. But yeah, so there you go.
Yeah. We daisy chain the shows together, and yesterday on the show I had Farhan, who is running for mayor of Lansing, and he's done some work out in East Lansing. And his question to you is, what do you think about the East Lansing Police Department?
So my experience with the East Lansing Police Department is pretty limited. Even though our mailing address is East Lansing, we're actually in Meridian Township, just south of campus. I think the Ann Arbor or the East Lansing Police Department is being in a college town has to be more welcoming isn't the right word, but kind of open to a much more diverse kind of community than a lot of communities in Michigan. And so I think they do a good job with that. I think that the challenge today with sort of white institutional racism or, the Black Lives Matter movement is just saying, treat us fairly and get the racism out of the space. I actually think that, it goes back to our universities. You've got a criminal justice department and you've got a social work department, and they're both trying to solve some of the same problems, but they're doing it in different ways, and they need to be working together more. So I think, you just kind of have to mix it up. There's going to be the things that police do, but when they're having to deal with addicts and mental health, behavioral health problems, or dealing with domestic abuse, that really needs a social worker to diffuse the problem, not somebody coming in, with a gun or whatever. So I think, it's not the police department's responsibility. It's our whole community's responsibility to recognize that things need to change and work for the change that's needed to eliminate sort of this idea of criminals and when it's really a mental health problem or whatever it is. I mean, whatever.
Well, thank you. I love that answer.
Okay.
Tomorrow on the show, we have a young gentleman named Devante, who's a dancer. And what question would you like me to pass to Devante?
Okay, so Devante, my question to you would be, if you could change anything today, if you were a superpower and could change something in the world, what would it be?
Yeah, and Devante is a great kid. I think he's going to love answering this question, and I can't wait to hear it. Yeah. But I also ask you the same question. So what would you do with that superpower?
Yeah, for me, it would be to give everybody the ability to see, through to people's real kind of who they are, to their heart and personality, and to eliminate sort of prejudice and have a world that can be sort of removing the prejudice and going to what people are really like.
That would be an awesome superpower. I mean, to give to everybody, an awesome gift.
Yeah, it's sort of like that X-ray vision, but you're seeing somebody's real integrity and heart. And I don't know if it's really possible, but it would be great.
I think there was a meme that went something like they invented a new program that you can just put in the names of the people you went to high school with, and they'd show you who all the racists are. And then the name of the program was Facebook.
Yeah. It's social media is just amazingly powerful, but it's frustrating. You can't have a good dialogue, I don't think. I mean, it just gets hard when people are just saying things and not listening. Yeah, but it's just, we get to see the world we've always been in. It's just that in our face, I think, in Facebook. So I don't know.
And Facebook seemed to get even more magnified during the pandemic because there's even less face-to-face. So now it's just throwing weapons or bombs at each other through comments.
So living here in Michigan, I've wondered, because I'm on Facebook, and I do think that there were foreign influences during the election in 2016 and again last year. And so I've been like trying to find, examples of it to see how it's been influencing people. And I think it's much more subtle than many of us see. And I haven't found any, like there was one person who had 2 accounts that I was friends with, and they were very conservative and kind of inflammatory in the way they commented. And I thought, oh gosh, that's probably someone, it's not him. And he ended up having 2 accounts. I called him, and it wasn't what I thought, so it's actually people, a lot of this stuff is just our, neighbors that we might not normally talk to, that we're getting to see what they're thinking on Facebook. And hopefully hopefully we'll improve communication, and we won't get caught in these communities of sort of bubbles where we're around people with the same values. I hope people can continue to kind of stay friends with people that have different views and help us all kind of work together. Oh, I have to tell you this, Jerry. I don't know if you would appreciate this, but I bought a book, Charles Koch of the Koch brothers bought a book. And as I've been looking at this constitutional amendment, I was thinking, well, if we can get the hard right supportive of how to fix healthcare. So a guy like this, he owns a bunch of businesses. He's paying a lot of money in healthcare. He's going to be willing to fix this. It's going to be really important to him. So anyhow, I bought this book called Believe in People by Charles Koch, and he has a standtogether.org. Standtogether.org is his nonprofit. And in here, he says that he made a mistake 10 years ago to become partisan and to fight for change in America in a partisan fashion. It blew up. He said it's been a disaster. And I don't know if you know the Koch brothers, but
I do, and I sort of hate them.
Yeah, so people have it. So he has that problem. A lot of people hate him. But he realizes now that it was a big mistake, and that he has to have a big tent to improve things. And what he did didn't work.
I can't even believe he wrote a book with the title Believe in People.
Yeah, you got to read this. I can give this to you because I haven't finished it. But what surprised me, and what my point is, that even these hard right people that you think are closed-minded are actually interested in the same thing that people like Bernie Sanders are interested in. We're not that far apart. We're really not.
I definitely believe that.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Sorry about that. So we're not that far apart. And so we got to look at what our common things are and work together. And so even the Koch brothers realized that they made a mistake, and that they shouldn't have been partisan because it rules out half the solutions. He said, as you get into a partisan group, anything the other guys are saying must be bad, and they're not listening to the other guy's solution, even though it could be the right solution. So even then, so when your side wins, now you're not working with the other side because you won and you've got blinders, and it's us versus them. It was just amazing to hear him say that. So I think things are better than they feel like they are, and that we can all get kind of sane and get things done and stop the polarization part of our politics. But I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go back to software, Jerry. That's why I got to go right now. So it's like, I say this. It's kind of easy to say, but it's hard to do. I know.
Yeah. What is happiness to you, and are you happy?
That's a really great question. I heard a quote recently that said, the world, when you have no expectations, is happiness, which is mind-boggling to me. I was trying to figure that out. And so you can get disappointed when you have expectations. So if you just take out those expectations and just be happy, I think is really powerful. And it's real acceptance of the world you're in, and it's not going to be perfect. But I think if you can lower those expectations to the point of just enjoying your life and then move from there. So there's going to be expectations. I'm not saying we should all just have low or no expectations, but I think there's some truth in that. Like people that demand a lot and that are very successful are often not happy because of it. Yeah. So I think you're better off kind of just accepting the world where you are, and you can find a lot of happiness that way.
I think in Buddhism, desire is the cause to all suffering.
Okay.
So a very similar kind of philosophy. And actually the philosophy I try to take too is just go with the flow, see what happens. It's going to be great.
So I haven't read much Zen or Buddhism. So yeah, it just sounded like something like that would come out of that side of the world and pretty powerful. Yeah. So I think it's helpful because we're such a capitalist sort of materialist society. We're always trying to do more. I've got some neighbors who are immigrants and they've really achieved success here in the US. And they told me that they're amazed by how unhappy everyone is in this country. And they came from a very poor country where people were much happier. And the whole thing is mind-boggling to them. And I'm like, yeah, money doesn't do it. Not at all. So I wasn't surprised. And I was surprised they thought it would. So, yeah. So I think we have a lot of happy people in the US, but, maybe not as many as they saw in the poor country they came from.
Yeah. Are you one of those happy people?
I think I'm in between. I mean, I don't think I'm as joyful as I could be, but I also do have a lot of expectations. I'm constantly pushing myself. So no, I'm thinking about all the stuff I need to be doing all the time.
All right.
Yeah.
And we got one more question. What gives you hope?
Okay. My hope stems from a belief. I do a lot of work with governments, and what I found in my experiences is if you don't believe in a higher power, it's really depressing to see how our governments work. But if you have faith, I think just tremendous things can get done. So what gives me hope is sort of a belief in a really positive, greater power, sort of a religious thing. I'm Christian, so I think my Christian faith gives me hope. And through that, I just get really wonderful the power of prayer and the power of sort of the goodness, the good news that I found through Christianity is what gives me hope, because it's not me, it's not what I'm doing. There's a greater power, I think, in the world.
Thank you.
So, okay.
What would you like to take us out with?
Well, I'd like to thank you. And I think what really needs to be said is the strength of what the Fledge is doing. So I appreciate what you're doing at the Fledge. I think that the work that you do as a for-profit to help people come in and create businesses and new entrepreneurial things at the Fledge is super powerful and is a model for a kind of a new way of thinking. And I'm sure it's going to be wildly successful. And I appreciate all the people you help in Lansing. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for being a great example of someone that can have a business for 32 years, that's in a tech field, that still has humanity. Just you're engulfed in humanity. And I love you for that, if you don't mind me saying that.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Good luck to you and all the people you help that are seeing this. Again, the Fledge is an amazing place, and Jerry's well connected. So thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, everyone, for watching episode 223, and we will be back tomorrow with episode 224. We will see you all later. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.